Hello and welcome to a gameplay for all seasons. On today's Hogwarts Legacy video, I want to talk to you about the things that I hope are not included in the game, else they may ruin the experience somewhat. There's one place I could certainly start, which is time turners. I'm not going to do that because I've already made a video about that. I really hope they don't include time turners. I'm pretty sure everyone else thinks the same. If you were interested in that, you can check out that video. So the first item I want to talk about is actually an item I've already discussed in the video, but I would say I've got a little bit more to say about it. So the first thing I hope they do not include in Hogwarts Legacy is Albus Dumbledore. Now, why do I say that? Well, personally, and this is just a personal opinion, you may really like Dumbledore, may be really hoping he's in there, and that is perfectly fine. But in my opinion, I feel a little bit oversaturated by Albus Dumbledore. Obviously, the original books and the films were the Harry Potter films. Albus Dumbledore was in there, which is absolutely fine. But since then, we've had the Fantastic Beasts films. They are heavily about Dumbledore. We've even got the very latest film called The Secrets of Dumbledore. Rather than being about Newt Scamander, it feels like it's about Dumbledore. Even in the Harry Potter films, Dumbledore was obviously a very large part of it. I just feel like somehow there's a risk he's becoming the main character of the series or the Wizarding World, and I just don't think that should be the case. The Harry Potter books were obviously about Harry Potter. There was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It was Harry Potter's and the Chamber of Secrets. It wasn't Albus Dumbledore and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It was absolutely about Harry Potter. We don't need to have Dumbledore in absolutely everything that is the Wizarding World, so I very much hope they don't put him in there. I would not like to see him in my year where we all know he was the star student. He's winning everything, so what, we can come second in everything because he's the best student ever. I would just rather he not be there. If he wants to be a first year or a fifth year and he doesn't do anything apart from be a bit of an Easter egg when you walk past, I'm kind of okay with that. But aside from that, in my own opinion, I'd rather he not be there. So the second item then that I want to talk about that I don't want to put in this game is Quidditch. And to be more specific, I mean a bad version of Quidditch. Now, we all know that this game has been delayed somewhat significantly. We're not quite sure it's coming out yet, but it sounds like it's not going to be the early part of 2022. Obviously, it probably should have been out sometime soon. That's not happening, and I hope it's not being delayed because they're trying to put in something that they don't necessarily need to. I would potentially put Quidditch in that category. Now, if they have put it in and they've done a full and fantastic job on it, brilliant. Personally, I would rather have a really, really good Quidditch game than none at all. But I suspect with all the delays, you could just get a slightly watered down version of Quidditch. Now, we know there may be some sort of connection to people who are making Broomstick League, because that suddenly disappeared. And if it's the case that those developers are separately making the Quidditch element and they're just going to slot it in here, or something similar to that, then that's absolutely fine. But as I say, I really don't want a bad Quidditch game. If you want to do a full Quidditch game separately, absolutely fine. If you want to have a very small mission that touches on it in Hogwarts Legacy, absolutely fine. But just don't put in a bad version where the physics doesn't work and it generally doesn't make a lot of sense, because that is worse than not having it in there at all. Item number 3 then is I do not want to turn up with absolutely everything bought for me already. Now, why do I say that? I say that because the opening scene in the trailer, when you're flying in a cart and there's an awful lot of stuff in there. We know we have access to Hogsmeade. There is a huge amount of shops in Hogsmeade where you can buy all the stuff. It will be a real waste if everything gets bought for you and all you have to do is go along and get sorted into a house and maybe buy a wand. That would be really disappointing. Not only do I want to choose my wand, or more specifically get my wand to choose me, but I want to actually pick up all my items, which would also be a good way to learn the controls of the game. And even perhaps if you've got a set amount of money, you've got to buy some things, maybe you get some products that are better than others and it can in some way affect your stats, something like that. I think would be quite good fun. I certainly don't want to turn up and just find out everything's been loaded in my bedroom, because I think that's a massive waste. Item number 4 then, and this is a word or potentially 2 words that send shivers down my own spine, and that is microtransactions. Now, this does not require a large discussion. Very few people, in fact, I've not come across anybody who seems to like microtransactions. If you do, put in the comments why you do, because it'd be very interesting to know. Maybe there's a good reason I'm overlooking. But me personally, I don't want microtransactions. You don't need them in this game. It's a Wizarding World game. All you've got to do is do a pretty good take of the game. I'm sure you'll make a huge amount of money. You can roll off sequels, have DLC and all those good things. You just don't need microtransactions in the games. Don't put better pets in there that you can buy if you want to do that. Don't put better wands or that you can buy that give you better stats, or even spells or whatever they can do. Just leave that. The only thing I'd be alright that if they put in a microtransaction is if you could buy Albus Dumbledore to get put into your game, because that means I could just not buy him and I wouldn't have to worry about him popping up. So the next item I want to talk about then is canon. In this game, I don't want them to break canon. And let me explain what I mean by that, because I know that can be slightly controversial. I'm well aware that this is a time period that hasn't overly been touched before, and there's only small amounts of pieces we know about it. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't be making their own decisions, they shouldn't be coming up with their own, or effectively making their own canon, because absolutely that's what they should be doing. They've got a good opportunity to really be creative here, come up with their own thing, add to the Wisdom world in a sensible way. But what I don't want them to do is do something that just doesn't make sense at all that's come before it. So for example, don't put McGonagall in the school. She shouldn't be there. Don't have a mission where they are looking for the Resurrection Stone, because at the time this game is set, it is very firmly set in a ring owned by the Gaunt family. It is not going to be there. It didn't go missing. You don't need to do anything with that. And small things like that. So there is very little I honestly think that they have to be cognizant of. There is some things, but just don't go ahead and think, I will completely ignore the fact that it's already well established what happened to this thing and I'm going to change that. You don't need to do that. It's a big world. There's lots of things you can be creative. There's lots of things you can add. You can go ahead, do your own thing. Just don't break something else that's happened. Now, I mentioned one of the Deathly Hallows there, which is the Resurrection Stone. If you are interested to know whether these could pop up in the game and where they were in the 1800s, then click the video that's on your screen now, and I'll see you on the next one.